It was a chilly autumn night, and I found myself once again working the late shift at the morgue. As a med student, this part-time job as an assistant was both eerie and valuable for my studies. The morgue was a somber place, but the walk-in freezer was where the true chill resided. All the deceased bodies were stored inside the walk-in morgue freezer until further processing. It was a cold and dimly lit room, and the stainless steel shelves lined with corpses sent shivers down my spine every time I entered. That night, as I was going about my usual duties, I heard a sudden beep. It was the motion sensor inside the freezer, indicating that someone might be stuck inside. My heart raced, and I rushed to the freezer, thinking that one of my colleagues might need assistance. But as I stepped inside, I realized something was off. There was no one around, and I quickly remembered that I was alone that night as my colleague had gone out to grab some dinner. The silence and the chilling air only added to the creepiness of the situation. Confused and feeling increasingly uneasy, I decided to leave. But just as I turned to head for the exit, the heavy door slammed shut behind me. Panic surged through me, and I tried to push the door open, but it seemed as if something was blocking it from the other side. My mind raced with terrifying thoughts of being trapped alone in this freezing room, surrounded by the lifeless bodies of the deceased. I began calling out for help, yelling at the top of my lungs, hoping that someone, anyone, would hear me and come to my rescue. Minutes felt like hours as I waited in fear, and just when despair was about to consume me entirely, the door finally creaked open. To my immense relief, my colleagues had returned from their meal break. They asked me what had happened, and I recounted the bizarre incident with the motion sensor and the chilling encounter inside the freezer. We were all puzzled and disturbed by the inexplicable events. From that night onward, we came to a decision to never leave anyone alone in the morgue, especially inside the walk-in freezer. No one knew what had triggered the motion sensor, but we were not willing to take any chances. Two people would always stay behind while the others went out to eat or perform any other task. The incident had left a lasting remark on all of us, and none of us could shake the feeling that something eerie lurked in the morgue, especially during those solitary late-night shifts. To this day, I can't explain what had triggered the motion sensor or how the door closed on its own. I stood in the heart of the haunting forest, my camera gripped tightly in my clammy hands. The assignment was clear: capture the breathtaking beauty of nature's wonder for the magazine. Little did I know that this expedition into the woods would unravel a chilling mystery that would forever haunt my dreams. As I ventured deeper into the wilderness, the dense foliage engulfed me, blocking out the sun and casting eerie shadows all around. It was as if the forest itself was trying to deter me from its darkest secrets. But I was a seasoned photographer, and the allure of capturing the perfect shot drew me further in. The sound of rushing water beckoned me towards a nearby river. The serene beauty of the crystal clear stream captivated me, and I couldn't resist snapping a photo. I peered through the viewfinder and prepared to immortalize the scene before me. Just then, a gunshot rang out in the distance. I flinched, but assuming it was just hunters in the area, I continued my work. Minutes later, as I looked through the viewfinder again, my heart sank. The once pristine river had transformed into a horrifying crimson hue. I couldn't believe my eyes. Panic and confusion washed over me as I rushed to the water's edge to see the ghastly sight up close. The river ran red with what looked like blood. Fear gnawed at my mind as I frantically scanned the surroundings. I knew it couldn't be an injured bird, not with the river practically dyed scarlet. My imagination spiraled into dark realms, and I began to entertain the worst possibilities. A large animal, or even a person, had met a grisly fate here. Battling the rising sense of dread, I immediately dialed the police and reported what I had witnessed. The urgency in my voice must have conveyed the severity of the situation, as the authorities responded promptly. When they arrived at the scene, they confirmed my worst fears. The river was indeed filled with human blood. Their investigation into the forest yielded no immediate answers. No signs of a victim, no trace of the perpetrator. It was as if the river itself had swallowed the evidence, leaving us bewildered and terrified. The days passed, and the crimson hue gradually faded, leaving no visible clue of the horror that had transpired. The incident weighed heavily on my mind, and the forest that once appeared enchanting now seemed malevolent. Nightmares plagued my sleep, and my work as a photographer suffered as a result. I couldn't shake off the feeling that I had glimpsed into the heart of something inexplicable and sinister. As time went by, the case remained unsolved, a dark enigma that had haunted the minds of everyone involved. The forest reclaimed its serenity, and life seemingly moved on. But the memory of that blood-red river lingered like a specter in the back of our minds. I took a deep breath, trying to shake off the eerie feeling that had settled over me. It was just another night at the mall's security control room. I worked the night shift here, monitoring the countless CCTV cameras spread throughout the complex. My partner, Jake, had stepped out to grab some snacks from the nearby convenience store. The room was dimly lit, and the soft hum of the security equipment was the only sound that broke the silence. As I watched the screens, I noticed Jake leafing through one of the monitors. I waved goodbye at the screen, knowing he couldn't see me, but the gesture felt comforting. As the minutes ticked by, I continued scanning the monitors, my eyes darting from one camera to another. That's when I saw something peculiar out of the corner of my eye. My head snapped to the side, but there was nothing there, just a mannequin, motionless in one of the clothing stores. I tried to dismiss it as my mind playing tricks on me, a side effect of staring at the screens for hours. After all, I had been on duty for quite some time. But then it happened again, movement in my peripheral vision. I turned my gaze once more, and the mannequin was still. Nothing unusual. I let out a nervous chuckle and scolded myself for being so jumpy. But then, I saw Jake entering the mall through the camera feed, and at the same time, I saw the mannequin move again. This time, when I turned my head to look, the mannequin was nowhere to be seen. My heart began to race, and I could feel a bit of sweat forming on my forehead. I quickly switched to other cameras, checking the ones closest to the store, but there was nothing out of the ordinary. The mall was deserted, and there was no sign of any movement, aside from the occasional janitor or security guard doing their rounds. I needed answers, so I decided to review the CCTV footage for that specific time frame. What I saw sent a chill down my spine. In the recordings, there was no mannequin in that clothing store at all. It was as if I had imagined the whole thing, but I knew what I had seen, and it wasn't a figment of my imagination. My heart pounding, I anxiously awaited Jake's return. When he came back, I immediately blurted out what had happened. He frowned, puzzled, and assured me that there was no mannequin in that store. He even checked the store's inventory on the computer to be sure. Nothing. I was shaken to my core. I couldn't explain what I had witnessed that night. There was no rational explanation for the moving mannequin, or rather, the absence of it in the CCTV footage. It was like a phantom presence haunting me throughout my shift. From that night on, I never looked at the mall's mannequins the same way again. I couldn't shake off the feeling that something inexplicable was lurking within those empty, lifeless figures. And as I continued my night shifts, I couldn't help but wonder what else was hidden in the shadows of the mall, waiting to reveal itself when I least expected it.